Hello everyone, welcome once again. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss another very important thinker of the fourth unit, Max Weber. So this is paper 1, unit 4, as you can see, Max Weber. So let's quickly look at some of the important themes in the light of PYQs. But before we get on with PYQs, let me just quickly share with you some important introductory themes pertaining to Max Weber that can offer great help in terms of finding pointers for introduction and conclusion. Now, for Weber, there are a few things that I just quickly want to draw your attention to. Weber is somebody who is influencing almost every other sociological school of thought. He is influencing structural functionalism. So his writings have influenced structural functionalism, as you can very well find out in Parsons. He has influenced the conflict tradition, as can be found out in the writings of Randall Collins. He's somebody who has also been very, very influential in the development of the Frankfurt School, the critical theory, critical Marxism school of thought. He has also influenced symbolic interactionism. He has influenced phenomenology, and he has also played a very important role in the development of ethnomethodology. So you can imagine very well how extraordinarily influential Weber was when it comes to the development of various schools of thought in Europe at various points in time. Now, there are a few pointers in relation to themes. So when we're looking at Weber's writings, Weber basically is interested in civilizational processes. So he is primarily trying to figure out how Western societies arose, when and where they did. Right. So basically, the focus on how Western societies arose and the entire process, right, of their overall growth, development, progress, and so on. He was also very much interested in the process of rationalization, something that he takes up at length when he talks about the issues with or the pathologies created by bureaucratization and so on. And then his comparative analysis of religion and economic organization, of which the most stellar example is Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. So these are some of the pointers that we need to keep in mind. These were the domains in which Weber was interested in. Weber is also somebody who is interested in sociology and history. You might find it a bit strange, but Weber actually is somebody who works at the intersection of sociology and history. And he was very clear that the task of sociology was to provide much needed service to history, meaning a sociologist can always help a historian do better. Something to that effect. And Weber was very clear that history and sociology kind of work very closely. Although he talks about a certain differentiation, he believes that history works with one set of arguments, sociology operates with a very different disciplinary allegiance. But he happened to be himself a historical sociologist. And he makes a very interesting distinction between what he calls a sociological probability and what he calls a historical causality. In other words, what he's pointing out is that while sociology works in the domain of probability, it is probability that sociology should be more tuned towards. It is causality that in some senses drives historical inquiry. So the concept of probability is something that Weber insists on as opposed to causality, something that the positivists were running after. So he makes a distinction between historical causality and sociological probability. So historical causality refers to the unique causes that give rise to a particular event, while sociological probability refers to the connection between or interrelationship between two phenomena. So for example, Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism is not a work that looks at historical causality. It's a work that explores sociological probability. You can use this in your introduction of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Before we go any further, Weber also has differences with Marx, because there is always a possibility of some kind of a question that brings Weber and Marx together. So I want to draw your attention to a few pointers that I believe are exceptionally insightful, and they will immediately get you a desired score if you were to use them the right way. So when Weber and Marx are compared, Weber, of course, held Marx in high regard. He genuinely believed that Marx was one of the greatest intellectuals of all time, but Weber also disagreed with him, and he disagreed with him massively, almost on every count. Now, for example, the first thing that Weber disagrees with in relation to Marx is to do with nature and purpose of social theory. So while Marx believed that theory must change the society, Weber did not believe in that. Weber believed, so Marx had this idea that the central task of social theory was to change society. But Weber did not really agree with Marx on that. He did not believe that the central task of theory was to change the society. He basically believed that the task of theory was to simply make sense of the world as promisingly as possible. So that is point number one. And also, Marx uses terms with a certain connotation. So, for example, when Marx uses the terms like inequality, etc., there is already a certain negative connotation that Marx associates with them. But Weber is of the opinion that terms should not be used, theoretical concepts should not be used in a way that is suggestive of a certain connotation. So, Weber believed that concepts in the social sciences should be neutral and their usage should not be based on value judgment, etc. And then Weber also did not believe in the theory of historical materialism, the way in which Marx talks about social and economic development from the vantage point of materialist theory of history. Weber does not believe in that. He does not believe in the way in which Marx talks about how societies evolved from stage 1 to stage 2 to 3 to 4 and so on. Weber also does not believe in this idea of economic determinism. He believes that there are other determinants of social life. So, for example, Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism is a fantastic example wherein economy does not really play that kind of role. It is religion that is contributing to something in the economic organization. There is also Weber believes that as opposed to this one sphere, which is economic, Weber believes that there is the economic sphere, there is the legal sphere, there's the political sphere, and there is the social sphere. And each of these, the religious, political, legal, economic, each of these spheres are important in their own right. There is a possibility that the economic sphere more often than not turns out more important, but then political, legal, and religious remain very, very important. And different spheres can be dominant at different points in time. Okay, so the materialist theory of history is questioned. The idea of class is also questioned. Weber does not believe that society is bipolar in terms of, or it's just about two classes, etc. So this is something that I thought you might want to have with you. Let's move on